Hi friends. As many of us know, Virgil Abloh passed away on Sunday from cardiac angiosarcoma, which is a rare form of cancer. He was a husband, a dad, and he was literally a mentor to millions of us. I think all of us are really shocked by this, and I've been a mess this week. I cried a lot last night. I've cried a lot this week, but I don't think that the guy that was making things like this and this and this and this, I don't think that guy would want us to be sad. So this is a celebration of the life and the work of Virgil Abloh. And it's really rare that when you're celebrating the life and the work of an artist that you have such joyous stuff to work with, to reflect on. He gave us a lot to celebrate. Last night I got to go to Virgil's final show at Louis Vuitton, which was show 7.2, entitled Virgil Was Here. It was fantastic. The clothes were beautiful, as we all know. The tribute was heartbreaking. The multiple tributes throughout the night were heartbreaking. I was kind of a mess the entire time, and I kept having the weird, just quarter of a second thought of where's Virgil? One of the single most influential designers of his generation was at the most powerful fashion house in history, and he only got to give us 7 shows. Virgil loved his work, and it showed. The constant collaborations, special projects, the not-so-secret websites, the lectures, his stores, the interviews, his books, the magazines, all of the shoes, his DJ sets, skateboarding onto couches, poetry, furniture, his art installations, puzzles, kites, and the best damn show notes I have ever seen in my life. Virgil was a cultural dynamo. Everything could be transformed, everything was a project, and most importantly, everyone gets to come have a seat at the table. He was a radically inclusive person. Anyone who kept up with his 40 or 50 Instagram stories per day knew that he was constantly redirecting the spotlight towards young and up-and-coming artists. When I heard that Virgil's final show was in Miami, I jumped on a plane immediately. It's the only time when I've ever just left without having any kind of plan. I really felt compelled to come. And you could tell that the world felt the loss of Virgil immediately. The city was covered in tributes to his life, including a massive hot air balloon over the Miami Design District, billboards on the street, and even a massive billboard on this boat. And the hot air balloon is a great piece of imagery for the final show. It's part of some loose symbolism to tie together a theme that Virgil has kept as the pillar to his work at Louis: boyhood. Every show has had its own themes, its own nuances, its own aesthetic, but they're all tied together by boyhood. Virgil mentioned to me one time via text that the LV shows are really just one big show. I asked him if the boyhood theme was autobiographical, and he said, quote, "Boyhood is not mine necessarily. It's more of a cross-section of how status quo manhood has been debunked to positive effect over the last 30 years, end quote. And that's what this show and Virgil's entire career really has been about: playing. When the show started up, there was some ambient music and a specific quote from Virgil that sums this up really well. I'll show you the clip.
I've been on this focus in terms of my art and creativity of getting adults to behave like children again, that they go back into this sense of wonderment. They start to stop using their mind and they start using their imagination.
At one point, I talked to a random guy who was also attending the show, and I said, "Wow, wasn't his work so special?" And the guy paused and sort of rolled his eyes a bit and said it could have used some editing. But I think that speaks so much to why Virgil's work is, in fact, so compelling. There was no pumping the brakes. It was joyously bursting at its edges. He took elements and he was curious with them. He saw things with fresh eyes, and he constantly was asking the question, what happens when I take this thing and put it over here? The final show changed shape rapidly over the course of the 53 hours between the announcement of his passing and the presentation itself. Originally, the show was just slated to be a literal runway show for the Spring 22 Menswear show with a few new elements added. This was typical for Virgil. He constantly wanted to tweak his own work, like he did with the BTS variant of the Fall 21 2021 show. The staff planning the event suddenly was tasked with trying to make enough room in a venue that's too small for the thousands of people that were coming to Miami to pay respects and say goodbye. And I don't think originally any publications were planning on sending correspondence to it, but very quickly this event became something like a cultural final chapter and a public funeral. The runway seating was covered in the Louis monogram and the yin and yang symbol, which is a symbol that Virgil loved. The runway itself was constantly being interrupted by thin birch trees, which was a symbol that was part of the Amen Break short film and was strongly reminiscent of the fake forest in the Empty Gallery in New York that served as the American flagship for the Off-White brand. It's not often that we see something that physically impedes a runway, but it gave the models just enough extra movement so that we could see the clothes sway on the body in a perfect way. And the whole show was capped off with strongly colored lights that switched between the colors of the rainbow, which is another symbol that Virgil carried through his time at Louis Vuitton. The rainbow runway in his first Louis show was a reference to The Wizard of Oz, a movie where Dorothy suddenly wakes up in a vibrant, strange world. And that was something that Virgil said he strongly related to. His ascent to creative director at Louis Vuitton felt surreal to him. But it also represented unity. It was everyone coming together. The party is a better place when there's enough seats at the table for everyone. And this was exemplified by the hundreds of students that were invited to that first show, where each was given a color-coded shirt and asked to stand in separate sections so the rainbow runway was reflected by the t-shirts worn by the students. Then when the show ended and everyone dispersed, the rainbow ran together and it just became this vibrant song of all the colors at once. The rainbow theme continued right up to the very end of Virgil's life. The stadium across from the final runway glowed with the churning rainbow displayed through the show, and the same lights were reflected on the runway. I've literally never seen rainbows used in design so effectively. It was really beautiful. And on everyone's seats, there was a little trinket where it was the runway name, so like the name and guest of, and just the place that specified where everyone was supposed to sit, and it turns into little... Virgil loved stuff like this. It was like a big part of what made doing a runway so special for him. And if you think about when Virgil was sneaking into Comme des Garçons shows back when, fashion was not nearly as culturally big and people didn't care about sneaking into runway shows, I think this is the kind of thing that he would have wanted those runway shows to be like, that they feel less like an industry trade show and more like a celebration. In my original coverage of Collection 7, we talked a lot about the symbolism of the Amen break. You remember this is the single drum break from the 1969 song Amen Brother by the Winstons. It's literally been sampled more than any other song in history. It's part of the fabric of culture now. There's almost no way to track the breadth of this song's full influence because it's just part of everything. And that's Virgil now. There's already so many working artists now who cite Virgil as an influence to their work, but just imagine how much that scope is going to increase over the next 10 years. I mean, I've had dozens of 20-year-old kids reach out to me and say, Virgil is the reason that I selected art for my life path. And if you give all of those kids just a couple of years to get into their lane, it will literally be untraceable, the quantity of influence that he has had over everyone. Someone on Instagram put this perfectly when they said, Virgil was mentoring all of us just by existing. The final post on Virgil's Instagram was made to announce his passing, but the last one that he posted himself is a really telling one. It's a typical Virgil post. It's just a promotion for his collaboration with Denim Tears. Anyone who follows his Instagram knows that this is a very standard type of post for him. But if you swipe through the slideshow, you find 3 black squares at the very end. This could be a glitch, but I honestly don't think that it is. I didn't know Virgil very well, but I don't think he was the kind of guy that wanted to do a big, grand goodbye to anyone. But he also loved symbolism a whole lot. So this to me seems like kind of a symbolic way of him quietly being able to say goodbye to everybody. And I don't know. I'm going to share my experience with Virgil. I admired his art a whole lot, but I did interact with him briefly, and that experience was really special to me. I started this channel with absolutely no concept that I could turn this into my full-time job. I just needed a productive outlet for my obsession with clothes. A few months after I started the Margiela series, I noticed that Virgil had followed me, and I just sent him a brief message thanking him for the follow, not expecting any kind of reply at all. And he replied immediately. With my level of influence, there was nothing that I could give to him considering his massive level of influence. But he didn't just reply to me, he talked to me. Over the next couple of years, we would go on these text storms where we would just talk about ideas. He was constantly sharing thoughts about things, sharing what he was doing. He just wanted to engage with other people about ideas. I would ask him questions about his work, and he would give these full, surprisingly honest answers. And at the time, no one in the industry would answer any of my emails because I couldn't do anything for them. I sent dozens and dozens of emails to all these different brands just asking for a PDF of their show notes, and I never got answers from anyone. Virgil was the first industry person who talked to me. He was nice to me. When I told him I was passionate about show notes, he got my address and he sent me 4 different physical runway show booklets from his first 4 shows at Louis, along with a kite from the 3rd show and a pool floaty bath toy from the 5th show.
Fuck, I just got home. Dude, thank you so much. This is more than I could have possibly asked for, especially because there is a kite. You did not have to send me a kite. Thank you. Thank you.
I was so excited in that clip, but after I opened that package at first in my apartment, I burst into tears. The huge people in the industry don't have to be kind like that. But Virgil was. And I found out that Virgil was like this with everyone, that I'm one of tens of thousands of people that received the gift of his time and attention. At the end of his first show at Louis Vuitton, Virgil posted a picture of him standing on the runway with a caption that just read, "You can do it too." And he lived by that. He didn't just say it, he actually helped me, and he helped so many other people too. If you interacted with Virgil in any way, or if you were just touched by his work, I would love for you to tell us about it in the comments. We're the public, we're the fans. I don't think we get any kind of formal funeral where we get to come together and cry and talk about his life, and so this is kind of that. If there's a time to share, let this be it. We all want to read your story, no matter how big or small it was. And if you can, go right now and gas somebody up. Go message an artist you love, or go message your friend who just started making their own work and tell them that you love it. Go buy your friend's t-shirt or text a local artist and tell them that their work is important. That was what Virgil spent most of his time doing. The best way that you can pay homage to this person that meant so much to us is to emulate his best trait: encouragement. Thanks for joining me, friends. I love you a lot.
On behalf of Louis Vuitton Menswear Studio, this season 5 is dedicated to undying creativity and standing up in the face of those things that ill us. And in these uncertain times, may creativity be our voice. On behalf of my Louis Vuitton studio and the creatives that made this show possible, we thank you for your mind, heart, and attention. Obrigado.